I was staring at a $35,000 retention bonus email when the turbine test cell started screaming like a banshee. The kind of high-frequency shriek that means someone's about to have a very expensive day, or worse, dead pilots. My name's Marcus Rivera and I'm 47 years old. I've been keeping aircraft engines running for 20 years, ever since I got out of the Air Force. That morning in March, I thought I was looking at the biggest insult of my career. Turned out it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But let me back up a little. 3 months earlier, our biggest defense contract was hanging by a thread. The Pentagon was ready to walk because we kept delivering turbine blades with thermal barrier coating failures. Not visible to the naked eye, but their stress testing caught hairline fractures that could cause catastrophic engine failure at altitude. We're talking about F-35 engines here, multi-million-dollar pieces of hardware that keep pilots alive. Suddenly, we were looking at a $180 million problem and potential pilot fatalities. Management was in full panic mode. Dylan Carter, our 28-year-old program manager with his shiny MBA and 18 months of actual aerospace experience, was running around like his flight suit was on fire. He'd been brought in from McKinsey or one of those consulting firms to optimize our processes, which mostly meant he used a lot of buzzwords in meetings and made PowerPoint presentations about lean manufacturing principles. Don't get me wrong, Dylan wasn't a bad guy, just green. Fresh out of Northwestern with all the latest business theories, but none of the practical knowledge that comes from actually running test cells. The kind of manager who could tell you the cost-benefit analysis of a process improvement, but couldn't hear when a fuel pump was about to seize. I'd been watching him for those 18 months, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. The kid was smart, no question. He could analyze data like nobody's business, and his presentations were polished as aircraft aluminum. But there's a difference between understanding a system on paper and knowing how it behaves when you push it to the limits. Dylan's initial diagnosis was that our thermal barrier coating application was inconsistent. He'd run some statistical analysis on our reject rates and identified what he called process variance anomalies. His solution was to increase the spray temperature by 50 degrees and reduce the coating thickness by 15% to improve efficiency and reduce material costs. Basic metallurgy would tell you that was backwards. Thermal barrier coatings aren't just paint you spray on turbine blades. They're engineered ceramic systems designed to protect the underlying metal from temperatures that would melt steel. Reduce the thickness, and you reduce the protection. Increase the spray temperature without adjusting the substrate preparation, and you create thermal stress that leads to exactly the kind of microfractures we were seeing. But Dylan didn't do basic metallurgy. He did data analytics and process optimization. I kept my mouth shut for about a week while they implemented his changes. The failure rate tripled. That's when Facility Director Powell Jenkins pulled me aside after a particularly brutal Pentagon review meeting. Jenkins was old school, came up through the ranks back when aerospace companies promoted people who could actually build things instead of just manage them. "Marcus, I need you to take a look at this coding issue," he said, glancing around to make sure Dylan wasn't within earshot. Unofficially, of course. Dylan still owns the project, but those Pentagon investigators are asking questions I don't have good answers for. I spent 72 hours in that clean room, going through every step of the thermal barrier coating process with a fine-tooth comb. Plasma spray parameters, substrate preparation protocols, cure cycles, environmental controls, post-coating inspection procedures. I even pulled coating samples and ran them through spectral analysis to check for contamination. The problem wasn't in the obvious places. It wasn't the spray guns, wasn't the powder feed system, wasn't even the environmental controls. It was buried in the maintenance schedule we'd changed 8 months earlier. See, plasma spray guns accumulate particulate buildup over time. Tiny ceramic particles that don't get fully melted during the spray process stick to the gun nozzles and gradually change the spray pattern. The original maintenance schedule called for cleaning every 40 hours of operation. Some efficiency expert had decided that was excessive and pushed it to 80 hours to reduce downtime. That extra 40 hours was enough for particulate buildup to create micro-inconsistencies in coating density. Not enough to show up in basic quality control, but enough to create weak points that would fail under the thermal cycling stress of actual engine operation. Simple fix, really. Return to the 40-hour maintenance schedule. Adjust the spray pattern overlap by 15% to compensate for the natural variation in gun performance. Update the substrate preparation temperature by 25 degrees to improve adhesion. Problem solved. I documented everything in a 47-page technical report, complete with metallurgical analysis, failure mode diagrams, and revised process parameters. Sent it up the chain through proper channels, copying Jenkins and Dylan. 2 days later, Dylan presented my findings to the Pentagon Engineering Review Board like it was his own breakthrough discovery. He'd repackaged my technical analysis into a slick presentation about process optimization through predictive maintenance algorithms and data-driven quality improvement initiatives. Suddenly, he was the hero who saved the contract and potentially pilot lives. I didn't say anything. That's not how I operate. Do the work, fix the problem, move on to the next one. Dylan was learning, and everyone makes mistakes early in their career. I'd made plenty when I was his age, back when I was a young airman trying to figure out why an F-16 engine was throwing compressor stall warnings. Besides, the important thing was that the problem was fixed. We started delivering clean turbine blades again. The Pentagon investigators went away happy, and our facility kept its reputation as a reliable defense contractor. Fast forward to March and corporate announces they're rolling out retention bonuses. Makes sense from a business perspective. We'd almost lost a major defense contract, people were nervous about job security, and management wanted to keep key personnel from jumping ship to Lockheed or Boeing. They called it the Critical Talent Retention Program. Very official, very strategic. Corporate had hired some HR consulting firm to analyze who was essential to operations and what it would cost to replace them if they walked. Dylan got his notification first. $35,000 paid out over 12 months if he signed a commitment letter. He was practically bouncing off the walls, telling anyone who'd listen about how the company finally recognized his value. He even brought donuts to the morning engineering meeting to celebrate. This is what happens when you deliver results, he announced to the room, holding up his offer letter like it was a diploma. The company rewards people who can adapt to modern aerospace principles and drive real innovation. I got my notification 2 days later, $6,000. Let me put that in perspective. Dylan makes $115,000 a year and has been here 18 months. I make $87,000 and have been here 20 years. I saved the company $180 million and potentially prevented pilot fatalities. He took credit for my work, and they gave him a bonus that was almost my entire annual salary after taxes. The email had all the corporate language you'd expect. We value your contribution to our success, and this reflects our commitment to retaining top talent. Standard HR boilerplate designed to make you feel special, while they're basically telling you they've calculated exactly how little they can pay you to stay. But the kicker was the meeting Jenkins called to announce the bonuses to the engineering team. Dylan was there beaming, like he'd just won the Powerball. Jenkins made a little speech about rewarding excellence and recognizing leadership during challenging times. These retention packages reflect our investment in the people who've shown they can solve complex problems and deliver results under pressure, Jenkins said, looking directly at Dylan. We want to make sure our top performers know how much we value their contributions. Then Dylan stood up and said something I'll never forget. I think this shows that the company values people who can adapt to modern aerospace principles. Sometimes legacy approaches have to give way to innovation. The old way of doing things isn't always the best way. He was looking right at me when he said it. Legacy approaches. That's what 20 years of experience in Air Force training had become in this kid's mind. After the meeting, I walked back to my workstation in the clean room and did something I hadn't done in years. I sat down and really looked at my life, not just the immediate problem of the bonus disparity, but the bigger picture of where I was and where I was heading. That night, I went home to my empty apartment and did some math. After my divorce 3 years ago, I pay $1,800 a month for Sophia's private school and custody arrangement costs. My 14-year-old daughter is looking at aerospace engineering programs at schools like Caltech and MIT. And even with my military education benefits, we're talking about serious money for the kind of education that matters in this field. Sophia's always been brilliant with anything mechanical. When she was 10, she took apart my old drill press and put it back together with improvements. Now she's building model rockets and talking about designing propulsion systems for Mars missions. She deserves every opportunity I can give her. I've got maybe 18 years left before retirement, and I'm watching guys half my age get rewarded for presenting my solutions as their own breakthrough innovations. Meanwhile, I'm making less money than Dylan spends on his car payments. The retention bonus had a specific clause buried in the fine print. Accept it, and you commit to staying 12 months with no early termination allowed. Decline it, and you're free to go immediately. I spent the weekend thinking about that turbine test cell that was still screaming. It had been running hot for months, operating at the edge of acceptable parameters. Management kept putting off the bearing replacement because it was expensive and the production line was profitable. But I knew those bearings were degrading, stress fractures spreading through the metal like cancer, building up pressure until one day the whole system would just catastrophically fail. Kind of like my career at this place. Sophia came over for our weekend custody visit, and we worked on her latest model rocket in my garage. She was designing a two-stage ignition system, something way beyond what most high school kids even think about. "Dad, why do you look so tired lately?" she asked while we were calibrating the thrust vectoring system. "Just work stuff, kiddo. Nothing for you to worry about." "Is it that manager you told me about? The one who doesn't understand thermal dynamics?" I'd mentioned Dylan's temperature adjustment fiasco in passing a few months back, not realizing she'd been paying such close attention. "He's learning," I said. "Everyone makes mistakes, but he's getting credit for your work, right? That's not a mistake, that's just wrong." Out of the mouths of babes. My 14-year-old daughter had cut straight through to the heart of it in a way that all my rationalizing hadn't. Monday morning, I walked into Jenkins's office and declined the bonus. "You sure about this, Marcus?" he asked, genuinely surprised. $6,000 is $6,000. That's Sophia's school costs for 3 months. The fact that he knew exactly what I spent on my daughter's education told me they'd done their homework on everyone's financial pressure points. "I'm sure," I said. "Can I ask why?" I thought about explaining the whole situation, about feeling undervalued and watching Dylan take credit for my work. But Jenkins wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what was happening and had chosen to let it continue. "I just think it's time to explore other opportunities," I said. He didn't push. Probably figured I was just being stubborn. Another old-timer set in his ways who couldn't adapt to modern management practices. I started looking for a new job that afternoon, not frantically, not emotionally, but methodically. The way I approach any technical problem. Identify the requirements, evaluate the options, select the best solution. Turns out when you've got 20 years of experience keeping complex propulsion systems running, people notice. Especially when you've got a track record of solving problems that stump the MBA crowd and an active security clearance that opens doors in the defense industry. My LinkedIn profile started getting attention within hours of updating it. Messages from recruiters, connection requests from engineering managers at companies I'd only dreamed of working for. Apparently, word travels fast in the aerospace community about engineers who can actually solve real problems instead of just talking about them. I had 3 serious interview requests within the first week, all of them with companies that competed directly with us for Pentagon contracts. The first offer came from Pete Davidson at a Lockheed Martin subsidiary about 45 minutes south in El Segundo. They manufactured turbine components for the same F-35 program we worked on, served some of the same Pentagon customers, and they'd been hearing stories about our recent quality issues through the industry grapevine. Pete was different from Jenkins. He'd actually run test cells before getting promoted to engineering management. When he called me for the phone interview, the first thing he asked wasn't about my education or certifications. It was about a specific compressor blade failure mode that had been plaguing the industry for months. "We know what you did with the thermal barrier coating issue," he said, cutting straight to the point. "We know who really figured out that maintenance schedule problem, and we know you're not getting the recognition you deserve." Word travels fast in the aerospace world. Engineers talk to each other at conferences. Pentagon procurement officers remember who actually solves problems versus who just takes credit for solutions. Vendors know which facilities call them when there's a real technical issue versus which ones call to cover up management mistakes. Pete had been around long enough to separate the talkers from the doers. "Why don't you come down here for a facility tour?" he suggested. "See how we do things, meet the team. No pressure, just a conversation between professionals." The Lockheed facility was impressive. Newer equipment, cleaner work environment, and most importantly, engineers who'd been there for decades instead of getting cycled out every few years for fresh MBA graduates. Pete introduced me to his team lead, a 25-year veteran named Rodriguez who'd worked on everything from Blackbird engines to space shuttle components. "Marcus here solved that coating crystallization problem that's been stumping everyone," Pete told Rodriguez. "The one where they were getting microfractures during thermal cycling." Rodriguez nodded appreciatively. "Heard about that through the Pentagon channels. Nice work." That kind of failure analysis takes real experience, not just textbook knowledge. They walked me through their thermal spray operation. Similar equipment to what we used, but maintained to military specifications instead of cost optimization spreadsheets. Their maintenance schedules were based on actual component wear data, not some consultant's efficiency analysis. More importantly, they listened when I asked technical questions. When I mentioned a potential improvement to their substrate preparation process, they didn't brush it off or explain why their current system was already optimal. They took notes. "What kind of timeline are you looking at?" Pete asked as we wrapped up the tour. "I need to give proper notice," I said. 2 weeks minimum, maybe more depending on project transition requirements." "Fair enough. Let me put together a formal offer for you to consider." The offer arrived by email the next day. 50% salary increase to $130,000 signing bonus. Company truck, better health insurance, and most importantly, a clear path to lead engineer position within 18 months based on performance, not politics. But what really sold me was the last paragraph. We value practical experience and expect our senior engineers to mentor junior staff while contributing to continuous process improvement. Your role would include technical leadership responsibilities and direct input on facility operations. Technical leadership. Direct input on operations. They were offering me what I'd been doing informally for 20 years, but with the title and respect that should come with it. I gave my 2 weeks notice on a Tuesday morning. Jenkins was genuinely shocked, which told me he'd never seriously considered that I might leave. In his mind, I was probably one of those lifers who'd stay until retirement regardless of how they treated me. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Lockheed subsidiary. El Segundo. They're a direct competitor, Marcus. You understand we can't let you take any proprietary information." "I wouldn't do that," I said. But everything in my head comes with me. 20 years of experience, problem-solving approaches, best practices I've learned. That's not proprietary, that's just professional knowledge. That's when Dylan spoke up from his workstation nearby. He'd obviously been listening to the conversation. "Honestly, Jenkins, this might be for the best. Marcus has been resistant to our new methodologies. Sometimes you have to clear out legacy thinking to move forward with modern approaches." Legacy thinking, there it was again. 20 years of experience and Air Force training reduced to outdated baggage that was holding back progress. "You might want to check the maintenance schedule on Test Cell 3. I said, looking directly at Dylan. "That bearing assembly's been running hot for 6 months. The vibration frequency's been climbing steadily, and the thermal signature shows stress concentration at the mounting points." Dylan waved me off dismissively. "We've got predictive analytics algorithms monitoring all that now, Marcus. The sensors would alert us if there was actually a problem. We don't need to rely on subjective observations anymore." I didn't bother explaining that sensors only tell you what's happening right now, not what's building up to happen next week. That kind of predictive understanding comes from experience, from having seen the same failure mode develop dozens of times across different systems. You learn to hear the difference between normal operational noise and the subtle frequency shift. That means a bearing race is developing microfractures. You learn to feel the vibration patterns that indicate mounting stress before it shows up on any computer screen. But Dylan lived in a world where data analytics could replace human expertise, where algorithms were more reliable than experienced judgment. He'd find out soon enough. I worked my 2 weeks professionally, as always, documented my ongoing projects, transferred my files, answered questions from other engineers who actually wanted to learn something. But I didn't volunteer any extra insights. No informal knowledge transfer about the little tricks and shortcuts that keep complex systems running smoothly. On my last day, Dylan made a point of shaking my hand and wishing me luck. "Change can be hard," he said with that condescending tone he'd perfected. "I hope you find what you're looking for at your new place." "Thanks," I said. "Good luck with the test cell maintenance. Remember what I said about that bearing assembly." He just smiled and nodded, clearly not taking it seriously. What I was looking for was respect, professional recognition, a place where experience mattered as much as spreadsheet analysis. I found all of that at Lockheed. Pete Davidson introduced me to the Lockheed team as their new senior propulsion engineer. Not just another engineer, senior. The guy you call when something breaks and you need it fixed right the first time. My first week there, they walked me through their entire operation. Similar equipment to what we used at my old facility, but newer, better maintained, and operated by people who understood that aerospace engineering isn't just about hitting production numbers. It's about building systems that keep pilots alive. They'd been having some efficiency issues with their thermal spray process. Nothing critical, just not getting the coating uniformity they wanted on a new Pentagon contract. The specs were tighter than usual, and they were running about 8% below target on their quality metrics. I spent a day observing their process, asked a few questions, and identified 3 bottlenecks that were costing them capacity. Simple fixes, really. Gun positioning adjustments, substrate preheating timing, and a change to their powder feed rate that would improve particle velocity distribution. We implemented the changes over a weekend, and Monday morning they were running at 108% of specification targets. Pete bought lunch for the whole engineering team that day. This is what happens when you hire someone who actually knows what they're doing. He announced to the group, instead of someone who just looks good in PowerPoint presentations. The comment wasn't aimed at anyone in particular, but everyone laughed. These were people who'd been working together for years, who trusted each other's competence and didn't have to watch their backs for credit thieves. It felt good to be part of that again. Meanwhile, back at my old facility, interesting things were happening. Dallin was learning what it meant to be responsible for keeping production running without someone to clean up his mistakes. I heard about it through Sophia. Her friend's dad worked in quality control there, and word travels fast in the Southern California aerospace community. People know each other, kids go to the same schools, families run into each other at Little League games. They were having problems with Test Cell 3, just like I'd predicted. Dylan had decided to implement some efficiency improvements based on his predictive analytics data. Faster cycle times, higher throughput, maximum utilization of available capacity. The only problem was he didn't understand that those systems had been designed with specific safety margins for a reason. Push them beyond their intended parameters and things start failing in expensive ways. The first failure was the fuel injection pump that couldn't handle the increased pressure cycling. 15,000 replacement plus 4 days of downtime while they waited for parts and recalibrated the whole system. Then the environmental control system started having issues. The cooling units were running hot because Dylan had increased the duty cycle without upgrading the heat exchangers, another $25,000 plus more downtime. But the big one happened 5 weeks after I left. Dylan decided to override the safety interlocks on the thermal spray system to squeeze out a few more degrees of operating temperature. He'd run some computer simulations that showed it would improve coating adhesion properties and reduce material waste. What his simulations didn't account for was thermal expansion in the gun assembly mounting brackets. The spray head wasn't designed to operate at that temperature range. The expansion caused a seal failure in the plasma containment system, and suddenly they had superheated gas venting directly into the clean room. Nobody got hurt, thank God, but they had to emergency shut down the entire facility. The environmental safety people got involved. The Pentagon sent investigators, and the whole operation was offline for a week while they rebuilt the damaged systems. Total cost, $125,000 plus penalty clauses, with the Defense Department for missed delivery schedules. I found out about it the next day when Pete mentioned it during our morning engineering meeting. Lockheed had been asked to pick up the emergency contract to cover the production shortfall. Rush job, premium pricing, very profitable for us. Funny thing, Pete said with a slight grin, the Pentagon procurement officer specifically asked if you were available to oversee the project. Seems your reputation for getting things done right is spreading. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just getting respect at Lockheed. I was building a reputation throughout the industry. Other defense contractors were starting to know my name, not as Dylan's subordinate or Jenkins's troubleshooter, but as Marcus Rivera, the engineer who solves problems instead of creating them. The Rush contract took 3 weeks to complete. We worked some overtime, but nothing excessive. The difference was efficiency born from experience. When everyone on the team knows their job and trusts each other's competence, things just flow naturally. Pete made sure I got a substantial performance bonus for the project. Not huge by corporate standards, but it represented something more important than money. Recognition, acknowledgement that good work deserves good compensation. Sophia noticed the change in me immediately. "Dad, you actually seem happy about work now," she said during one of our custody weekend dinners. "Like you want to tell me about what you're doing instead of just getting through it." Kids are perceptive. After the divorce, I'd been going through the motions for a while. Work, pay bills, see Sophia every other week, repeat. But at Lockheed, I was genuinely excited about Monday mornings again. Problems to solve, systems to improve. Colleagues who listened when I shared technical insights. About 2 months into the new job, I got an unexpected call from Jenkins. The conversation was awkward from the start. "Marcus, I'll be direct," he said. "We're having some significant technical issues. Dylan's struggling with the operational complexities, and we could really use your expertise on a consulting basis." "What kind of issues?" I asked, though I already had a pretty good idea. "Equipment reliability, process optimization, the kind of troubleshooting you handled so well before." Dylan's learning that managing systems and understanding them are two very different skill sets. I almost felt sorry for the kid. Almost. "I appreciate you thinking of me, Jenkins, but I'm pretty committed here at Lockheed. They keep me busy with meaningful projects. We could make it financially worthwhile. Premium consulting rates, short-term engagement. I'm sure you could. But Dylan needs to figure this out himself. That's how people develop real expertise. Trial and error, consequences and learning." There was a long pause. "I understand if circumstances change. I'll keep that in mind. Good luck getting everything sorted out." I hung up feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of being genuinely valued rather than just needed. 4 months later, Dylan's program got restructured. Corporate brought in an external engineering firm that specialized in aerospace manufacturing operations. Dylan received a severance package and moved on to a consulting position helping other companies optimize their processes. Maybe that's where his skills were better suited. The $35,000 retention bonus he'd received, company policy required him to pay it back on a prorated basis when he left early. He'd lasted 11 months, so he kept about $32,000 of it. My signing bonus alone was worth almost as much, and that was just the beginning. Sophia graduated from her aerospace engineering summer program at JPL with the highest marks in her class. When I picked her up on the last day, she was practically vibrating with excitement about orbital mechanics and rocket propulsion systems. "Dad, I know exactly what I want to study in college now," she said as we drove home, "propulsion engineering, just like you. But I want to work on spacecraft engines that'll take people to Mars. That's a pretty ambitious goal, kiddo. You always told me that if you understand how things work and you're willing to solve hard problems, people will recognize your value eventually." I believe that. She was right. That's exactly what I'd learned. Look, I'm not telling you this story because I want sympathy or because I think my situation was unique. I'm telling it because I know there are guys out there who recognize this exact scenario. You've got decades of experience. You've been doing the real work while watching people with half your knowledge get twice the recognition. Maybe you're telling yourself to keep your head down, wait it out, hope things improve. Maybe you're worried about the risks of starting over, concerned about walking away from something secure. Here's what I learned. The biggest risk isn't leaving a place that doesn't value you. The biggest risk is staying and letting them convince you that's all you're worth.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay. They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you, from the places in my mind. But the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. But now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true.